Hey folks, again, welcome back to 3's End. So this next story takes place between El Paso and Reese Air Force Base. It's actually two stories combined into one. So you're getting a twofer here, I suppose. At any rate, it began with a student out and back to El Paso from Reese. And when they got down there, shot an instrument approach or two. And then they were going to shoot an approach to runway 22, circle to runway 26 left for the full stop. And that was the plan. So they shoot this approach, runway 22, and then level off. We had to level off 600 feet AGL for the circling approach. And they began the circling approach. Well, during the approach, they ruled out on final a little bit too close, which put them a little bit too high. It's not a big deal. It's student training. If it doesn't look right, go around. So the student said to the instructor, I'm not real comfortable with this from where I am. He says, I think we ought to take it around. And the IP says, no, he says, I think you'll be fine. Let me show you. So he brings the power back to idle, pushes the nose over, picks up an aim point or so forth. What he does, he induces a sink rate that he didn't detect until a little bit later on in an approach. And when he finally did detect it, he goes, oh crap! So he takes the throttles, goes into AB, and I think they lit. And God save them. That's what saved them, is those two burners lit. They still hit. They hit pretty hard, and they tore up the airplane quite a bit. But the two burners lighting cushioned the hit. They slid to a stop and got out, and that was more or less it. So they took the airplane and picked it up, put it on a flatbed truck, took the wings off, of course, and put it on a flatbed truck and took it back to Reese. And when they got up there, they looked at it all, and they said, you know what, we can fix this. It might be down for a little bit, like 18 months, I think, but he said it is fixable. So they took it in and worked on it for about 18, 20 months, whatever it was, and got it back operational. Now, the first thing you do with an airplane after heavy maintenance like this, you take it out on a functional check flight. Sorry, I had to chuckle. I know how the story ends. So anyway, so they take it out on an FCF, functional check flight, and that's flown by a senior pilot in FCF. So the guy hops in and off he goes. Well, while he's out there, he's flying around putting the airplane through its paces, and he loses control of the jet. He just went out of control. He lost control of the aileron. So, being totally out of control, he had no other choice but to give it back to Jane Fonda. So he jumps out of it, sends it on its way, and it spears in. Well, in the investigation, they discovered that in the linkage of the mechanical linkage to the hydraulic servos in one of the wings for the ailerons, a cotter pin was not installed on a nut that was used in this thing. And so the nut had backed itself off, and the two pieces, there were two pieces in the linkage like this, with the nut coming down through them, or the bolt coming down through them, and the nut going in like this. And they usually put a cotter pin through that to hold that. Well, this thing, the cotter pin went in, and the nut had vibrated off. And when that vibrated off, this piece here on the bottom just kind of fell off like that. Once that fell off, you lost the linkage, and then it's time to step over the side. So what they had discovered is, during the period before this, we knew we had a problem with this. We had lost a couple other airplanes due to this very same situation. And a fleet-wide inspection went out. And since this thing was in heavy maintenance, I don't know, I suspect they just pencil whipped the inspection. But the bottom line is they didn't do it. The fix to it was really interesting. What they did is they put another piece on this one arm of this linkage. So when it went in like that, okay, you had a configuration like this. The nut went through, or the bolt went through, and then they put the nut on. So if the nut would come off, in theory, the bolt was long enough to hold it. But how would you know the nut ever fell off, But anyway, that's another question for another video. So anyway, the damn thing came off. They lost control. The pilot lost control of the aircraft, and this time they couldn't write it off to corrosion control or something silly like that. That was in too many pieces to put back together. But I just think to myself, what a shame. What a damn shame. That airplane would have looked so good in its entirety sitting on my front yard. Damn, I hate to hear things like that. It just saddens me. At any rate, this is Bobo, Basic Gear. Stop.